Okay, so after all this data collecting, I'd like to place all this in a little more educational or sociological perspective. Because all this data, the sociolog asks, does it make us happier? Or do we know more about education by that? So I'd like to share a few tools with you. Tools we all use every day, and we're going to see what we can do with all this data that's coming out of it. And moreover, when we compare this or mix it with the wireless data. Okay, and then we can see that also the educational data is a diamond mine as well. You know. Oh yeah, before I do that, I'd like to tell you a little about my background. I was graduated as an engineer 25 years ago, and the first assignment I had was to work in a team on the ISDN chip. You see it here. And the ISDN chip, we developed it with a whole team. And this team, what happened in this chip was much less interesting than what happened in this team. And my parents and all the family were all educational people. So having this, of being an engineer and a sociologist, and having this genes, this educational genes, we started developing tools that collect data and where we can see what happens in education. But we also ask ourselves the question, does this all make us happier or more successful? Or is there a correlation between education on one side and being successful later on the other side? That could be interesting. So you can ask yourself the question, what is being happy? Is it working on your 10 in a Mustang convertible, or growing a nice family, or being rich, or graduate in higher education? Is that it? Well, we think it's Edward. The little man with the big mustache being an IT hero. That's success. Okay, so last year, we were at EDUCAUSE 2013. And we thought the big data movement could help us answer all our questions. According to the Gartner hype cycle of emerging technology, it's on the top of it. But the question is, do we have big data? Do you have big data? We don't. We don't have big data, and what does it cost? So let's take a look at what we do have. Now you understand the hack. Yeah. We do have data on campus, lots of data, you just saw it. And it's data we have access to. And it's getting more and more every day because students enter our buildings. They evaluate each other, fill out thousands of forms. They get fed up with that. They evaluate each other. So we know where the students are. We know what they do. And we also, that's in addition to Rens' data, we know what they learn.
Okay, that's a great story. Or maybe you don't think it's a great story, but the only thing people ask me about, do you know where the students are? Then they say, all right, so then you can block Facebook during my lessons. Can you do that? That's a question I get a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. We got this question too, and what we say then is just leave it on and look at the log files from your network. And you can see how interesting class was by looking at how much people were Facebooking or using other social media. So that learns you more than turning it off. So leave it on. Okay, 3 tools. Tools we all use and we all collect data. Ordinary tools. Just a short visual at these examples. Next. The first is an evaluation tool. The problem was that the university had used very long questionnaires because they only could use it once a year. Students were fed up with all these questionnaires and forms, and so we only could ask them one questionnaire a year, so we had to put in 80 questions or more. So the feedback we got out of it was old. They got it a year later. And there was a very low response, and it was getting lower every year. And there was no feedback useful for teachers because it was very old. It didn't say anything about their class. Okay? So, just-in-time evaluation, we connected the survey to the timetable from the school, so we know if the student is supposed to be in school or not. And then you could give them a small questionnaire when they are supposed to be there. We even know who their teacher is. And so you can give feedback to the teacher who gave this class. And you could also connect it to the wireless, and then you know if students are actually in class or not. So you can only give a notification on the app when the students are in the school above. And you don't get any data from students who are not in the school. So your data is better. 5 minutes before end of class, the students get a tiny questionnaire with only 4 questions drawn from an 80 question form. And they could fill it out with only one thumb. And immediately after class, teachers could see how much they scored. It's like you used to do in a paper, and then you had to do it in Excel and all these kind of things. Now they could immediately see how the score was. And also students can see their own score, but also compared to his peers, the other students. So the first results on this project was the one thumb design worked because we got very good feedback on that. And the response increased mostly more than 50%, and even more in some factors. And direct action by the teacher showed that the response stayed high. So if the teacher does something actually with the feedback he gets, students keep filling out these forms. And of course we collected data, lots and lots of data, good data where time and place and performance all together was collected. Okay, the next example is the peer evaluation system at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. It's a high-tech campus where they create these solar racing cars and aircrafts and spaceships and that kind of stuff. And they work in teams. They work a lot in teams. High-tech teams, because if they make mistakes, it can be fatal in an aircraft. But because they work a lot in teams, the teachers saw less and less what happened with their students, how they perform. In class, they see everything they do, but in the teams, they work outside. So they saw less and less how the students perform. It was a complex process because imagine that you have a questionnaire, or a peer feedback with 10 students. You need about 100 forms. If you do that, if you have to fill out all these forms, and you need 100 envelopes, right, if you send them to them. And you need a very complex macros in Excel, and it takes you hours and hours to get a report from that. I tell you that. This is on the right side, you see the rubrics. We used the rubrics. They were from the Air Force Academy in Colorado. They invented this. And they can fill out a whole peer evaluation in only just one little form. And again, you can see how your score is, how your peers score. And on the left side, you see the remarks. They can give each other remarks, but the the most exciting thing was an experiment that they could give feedback to the teacher in private. It sounds a little, but it was a big success because we could locate freeloaders. Everyone who did nothing, you could see it immediately. So this tool, it saved a lot of time. It saved a lot of time for teachers. No more freeloaders because they can locate them very easily. And the students were putting much more effort in learning and in working in the team than pretending they're working, like they used to. And they learned to give feedback, of course. And we got out of lots of data. It was data, this data told us that people who used this peer feedback, the teams were much more successful than teams who didn't. You could see that immediately. So the next things that coming up is that we use this peer data with the wireless data. So you can try to find the freeloaders by their actual activity on the wireless. We can see if they're actually in the school and working. And there's another thing coming up that's like a radar where we know where other students are. You can see them. If you know their complementary competencies, you can learn from each other. So if you see where the students are who have complementary competences or know things you don't know, you can peer teach each other. The only thing we don't know yet is how we can seduce them to do that.
Beer. Free beer.
Beer. Free beer. Yeah, Rens has had an idea. It's an experiment. We're just giving free beer. Okay, so the last one. This is a project, it's a visual of the world with all the connections from Saxion University, built by the Hospitality Business School, because they want to show what they all did and where they all are. And they want to give students the opportunity to work together, to find each other, and to find good internships, because on the network is students, teachers, projects, business partners, and internships, and of course alumni. And this last group is interesting for the next, because this is only used for working together and networking and so on. But there's a new project coming up where we try to answer finally the sociological question, because we can see, we ask alumni 5 years after they graduated how successful they are. And if we know that, and we can compare that with their educational data 5 years ago, we might find finally the answer how much education influences success. Okay, so we have lots of valuable data. You all have lots of valuable data. But we don't know what your questions are. So we'd like to challenge education, maybe not the IT, but maybe the more educational people, to formulate a number of interesting questions, because we can build all kinds of tools and apps, but we like to have the right questions. Interesting questions for analysts and diamond owners like us. Rens.
Okay, so to wrap it up, what can we learn from this presentation? One, you can all take your cap home. Don't take a cap that doesn't belong to you. Number two, there was only one person who came prepared, and that is sitting there. You can applaud.
Then you can applaud.
Three, you have all this wireless data. You have all this educational data. The only thing you need is a golden pit. This. Because if you use a golden pit, on your diamond mine of data, then you, like Edward, can become the most fun, important person on campus. And you don't even have to grow your moustache to do that. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? Yeah, no. Okay.
Since you're in Europe, you probably have privacy laws also.
No, we don't.
How did you cope with these privacy issues in this one?
Yeah, that's the big issue.
There are two solutions. One, a lot of applications are based on more meta or micro data, so it's not personal data. Second one is a few applications that give opt-in or opt-out mode. So students can choose not to enter the program, and it isn't defining for his, to get his diploma or something like that. And that's working because most students just opt in. They like it.
Yeah.
But do you present these data anonymously also, so you can have somebody who wants just to massage the data, having all the MAC addresses or the users? Or
Yeah, we get a lot of questions, for example, from people that do the buildings at Fontys University, and they want to know exactly how their buildings are used, when it's busy, when it's not busy. Education is always saying there is not enough space. Building people are always saying there's too much space, and now with this data they can really research this kind of problems. So we're getting a lot of questions like that, but also about I'm doing this educational program, is it working? Are people coming to school and stuff? Yeah. Other questions?
Okay.
How did you convince students to, I understand that you asked them to opt in, how did you convince students to do that?
How do you convince students to opt in?
Well, first of all, a lot of applications were built by students, so then you already have a base. And second of all, we used applications like this, and we promoted them through our Facebook campaigns with our communication department, and students are really liking it. And they just see that it's fun or it works for them. If they can find something like I can find my device, I can see if it's busy in the cafeteria, stuff like that, they will do it.
They also opt in, of course, when they're using the network, and they all want to use the network. So for a part of it, it's good.
Are they student workers?
No, they're students. Yeah. No.
Do you hire student workers?
No, the students that are building it, it's integrated in their normal lessons. They're like students from IT and media design, and I have their contractor, and they work for me, and then they get their grades. And sometimes we use people from outside companies to help them get the right level of the application. So we don't pay them. No. We just make it part of the educational process. And they're lining up to do this because they think it's very fun. Other questions? No? One more round of applause?